So we will wait more 3 minutes. Okay. Yes. So to be sure that everyone is here, waiting for that, I will. Hi, Javier. Waiting for that, I will go pick my coffee and coming back. For that, I will go pick my coffee and coming back.
I was saying a ristretto to Sari. Okay, Miguel, are you introducing the panel?
Yeah. Okay. Good morning.
Wait a second till Sari comes back.
Okay.
From his coffee. Okay.
We are waiting Ronald also, I think. No.
Ronald is not here yet.
Yes, Roland is not here. This is Teresa. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. So only a technical issue, as yesterday. Remind everyone to close the mics and cameras while listening to the roundtable, and whenever you have to speak, Masoud, Berlin, Miguel, whoever, remember to open the microphone before and not after starting speaking. So the table is yours, Miguel.
Miguel, can you please accept Ronald? He's waiting for an acceptation, say.
But here it doesn't say anything about. Let me check. But he can't enter with the link.
No, he said that he's waiting for acceptation.
But I don't have here anything. Tell him I'm going to send him the link again. Okay.
Maybe I can call him.
No, I think no. I have to send him the link.
Tell him to open it in Chrome.
Yeah.
Chrome. Okay.
Yeah. And to join as a guest, invitado.
Desconecta el micro.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Okay. Hi, Roland.
Yeah, okay. I had a problem to connect. That's why I'm connected a bit late, because I tried to do it with the other dispositive. I was connected, but it seems as if I was not accepted through your site. That's why.
Okay. But now it's everything functioning well?
Yeah, everything is good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Sari here already?
Yes.
Okay, so we should, I think, start with the panel. This panel, as you can see in the program, is going to delve around a sociological approach to the phenomenon of refugees. We'll have, as Sari will explain, 3 presentations. And as Javier has reminded you, please turn off the mics and turn off the camera so we can have the best connectivity possible, since we are a lot of people here. And in order to ask to intervene after the presentation and in order to take part in the debate, please write down your, like, I want to intervene or I want to ask a question in the chat of the session, so Sari and I can have more or less control of who's willing to intervene. And chairing this panel is going to be Sari Hanafi, which is a professor at the American University of Beirut, and also, according to Wikipedia, is the 19th president of the International Sociological Association, which is one of the most prestigious associations in that field. So, Sari, whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you. We have, I think, an exciting roundtable on sociology of refugees, research, activism, and experience. Myself, I am a Palestinian refugees, but also I have been working on Palestinian refugee issue and diaspora in general for many, many years before turning to knowledge production and critique of post-colonialism, what I'm doing right away. Now, so I would like to welcome the three speakers. We have Professor Masoud Sharifi from University Autónoma de Barcelona, and Merles Mesquera, Asociación San Juan de Dios, España. I'm trying with my horrible accent, and Roland Fosso, activist and writer. So in order to maximize the time for discussion, I would like to ask you each to speak 10 minutes, and then you may develop some ideas later on in the Q&A sessions. Okay? And most probably I will gather questions for three of you, and then each one will have time to reply. Masoud, you have the floor. And anyone has a PowerPoint, please, you can share the screen with us.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So thank you for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure for me to be present at this debate. Okay, as you probably know, millions of people around the world every year forced to move by conflict, natural disaster, civil wars, and oppressive state regimes. The number of refugees and forced migrants in the world exceeded 70 million globally last year. Refugee, asylum seekers, and other forms of forced migration have occupied the attention of a broad range of scholars and policymakers for several decades. Researchers from a variety of disciplines have contributed to the field, and one can certainly say that today forced migration questions have become increasingly interdisciplinary. It's not easy to put, let me just pop. It's not easy to put a starting date on a field of sociological research about forced migrants. However, it can be said that forced migration is a fairly new area of sociological research, which has developed mainly over the later part of 20th century, whereas migration historically has an important role to play in sociology thanks to the Chicago School of Urban Sociology. It's only approximately 30 years ago that scholars began outlining the sociology of forced migration. Still in the context of Cold War, the 1988 volume of Current Sociology published a special issue on the sociology of involuntary migration. The issue took stock of existing scholarly work and discussed future lines of inquiry. Since that time, an increasing number of publications on refugee issues written by sociologists have appeared. In my presentation, I propose to approach how refugee migration has been constructed as an object and analyzed by sociologists. As you can see on the slide, at the end of 2018, almost 70.5 million persons were forcibly displaced worldwide as a result of persecution, conflict, violence, and human rights violation. More than 60% of all refugees worldwide came from in 2018 came from just 5 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Myanmar, Somalia. In addition, many people have to migrate because of environment degradation, natural disasters, and industrial accidents or pollution. The most obvious reason the sociology studies forced migration is because it has grown dramatically in the post-Cold War period, but also they emphasize the significance of forced migration in contemporary society and in current process of change. In other words, sociologists are concerned with forced migration because it is a central aspect of social transformation in the contemporary world. So research on refugees has generally focused on specific aspects such as demographic characteristics of immigrants, migration decision-making, economic and social adaptation in receiving countries, or global trends in population movement. Sociological theories of forced migration try to answer to the questions such as what is the internal and global dynamics of forced migration? What is the role of international community? What is the role of the state? Why do people migrate? What are the personal, economic, and cultural, and political and social consequences of forced migration? Given the limited time available, we cannot do a comprehensive review of all theories concerning forced migrants. However, I may say that sociological research on forced migration attempts to move toward an integration of micro levels and macro levels of analysis that involves a broad range of interconnected research topics, ranging from refugees' subjective experience to transnational dynamics. At a macro level, sociological theory focuses on the political economy of forced migration, social policy for forced migrants, transnational communities, causes in countries of origin, etc. No? In this micro-sociological level of analysis are those works which focus on forced migration from a structural perspective. This macro level of analysis is to be found in globalization literature. In Stephen Castell's view, sociologists should study forced migration because it has become an integral part of globalization, of a system of selective inclusion and exclusion that intensifies inequality and south-north divide. This system produces conflicts and forced migration and tends to blur distinction between economic and forced migration. Forced migration studies have been also much influenced by transnationalist paradigm. Examining the notion of transnationalism in the light of refugee experiences presented an opportunity to improve and expand its conceptualization. At the macro level, theorists also focus on the state's policies. The creation of refugees is a part of the modern system of sovereign territorial states, and indeed processes of state formation have been evoked in important drivers of forced migration. According to some sociologists, for example, Zalberg, the spread of the nation states as a universal model for organizing political communities produced refugees who did not fit national definitions of membership. Obviously, states are the primary cause of forced displacement. The refugee would not exist without the creation of an international border for them to cross. Micro sociological analysis give a less homogenizing view of forced migration and leaves more room for the individual experience of the people affected. Some sociologists have remarked that the concept of forced migrants tends to dehumanize people by denying them the role of being the ordinary people or purposive actors. This perspective views individual actors as the focus of action, of social action. Hence, micro level of analysis includes studies of socio-psychological factors with theories concerning motivation, decision-making, satisfaction, identity construction, individual subjectivity, identity formation in exile, the socio-economic and cultural experiences of the refugees. By looking at the meso level, sociologists address the collective life of social worlds and organizations that lie between micro interactions and macro societal structure. The meso level includes most theories concerning the dynamics of mobility, immigrant adaptation, economic and social integration, inclusion, assimilation, networks, mobilization, organizational sociology of humanitarian and refugee agencies, public opinion and discourses on forced migration, etc. Finally, I would like to focus on the methodological point. Not surprisingly, sociologists use qualitative and quantitative research methods. However, quantitative methods can often be problematic in this area. Reliable data collection hardly take place in the situation of conflict and insecurity. Ethnographic and other qualitative techniques are often the primary methods. So to sum up, we can say that the most critical points for the data collection methods are security issues. Firstly, both of the people and communities involved and that of the researchers. Secondly, the data collection methods too often relying on access through a particular NGO organization or camp, or hardly access on large-scale survey data sets. We have the problem, the lack of control groups. The majority of studies based on small samples and stakeholder interviews, typically selected on the basis of accessibility, that they don't allow comparison across different groups in a single location or across time and space. Here, it must be noted that the sociology of forced migration needs to make use of the research findings of other disciplines. Indeed, interdisciplinarity is essential characteristics of refugee studies. A historical understanding of both of sending and receiving society is crucial in understanding forced migration situation. Comparative studies of experiences in different society can provide alternative approaches. The understanding of local, national, regional patterns of social and cultural relations and how they are affected by border changes is equally important. Finally, it should also be said that sociologists increasingly use participatory research methods which give an active role to forced migrants. Okay, I know I'm getting short on time, so I'm coming to a conclusion. To conclude, I will once again underline the fact that sociology of forced migration doesn't exist in isolation. It must be understood as a part of interdisciplinary and transnational research efforts. However, one distinguishing factors of sociology of forced migration is that it's focused attention on the social dynamics of the migratory processes and processes of global social transformation in both areas of origin and destination. In this regard, Castells argues that whereas the field invites multidisciplinarity, the specific character of sociology lies in its theoretical and methodological approach. He defines the specific sociological focus. He defines the specific sociological focus as, on the one hand, connecting forced migration with social relations, ideas, institutions, and structures at various levels: global, regional, national, and local. On the other hand, process of loss of identity and of rebuilding community. Maybe I think I could go on about
this.
this,
Is over, but if you want to wrap up with a few words.
No. It's okay for me. Thank you for your patience and for your time. Maybe then.
Yeah, thank you so much, Masoud. Really, in a few minutes, you succeed to take us in a survey, in a beautiful survey about sociology of forced migration. I think this definitely will bring some questions from the floor in a few minutes. So I would like now. To ask Merlis to have the floor. Hello, Merlis. Yeah. Okay. We don't hear you, and we don't see you.
And now? Did you see my presentation now?
Yep.
Yeah, we see. Thank you.
Thank you to you. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me to this conference. As the title of this conference said, I think that this is a good opportunity to bring closer one of the most complex realities around the world, refugees and forced migrant issues. In this presentation, I'll share some issues that come from the experience of accompanied refugees and asylum seekers at a reception center run by an NGO called San Juan of God here in Spain. Due to the variables involved around the reception conditions for refugees in Spain, I will focus in two main challenges. One is related to the access to the international protection, and the second one is the reception conditions. To start, I will say that for the last 3-4 years, Spain has experienced a significant increase on the number of new asylum seekers from 15,000 people in 2006 to 18,000 people in 2009, which caused the collapse of the national reception system, added to the claim of the European Union to adapt the national legislation to the community guidelines, which mean, among other things, to limit access to asylum application at migrant holding centers and expand the list of legitimate reasons to deny applications. The duration of the asylum procedure varies significantly depending on the nationality of applicants and can last from 3 months to 2 years and even up 3 years in exceptional cases. But now let's see some data about this. According to the report of the Ministry of Interior in Spain in 2020, the large majority of asylum seekers in 2009 were, as you can see here, from Latin American countries like Venezuela, Colombia, Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. In terms of positive decision, that you can see here after yes, the majority positive decisions, which mean refugee status and subsidiarity protections, were granted to individuals originating from Syria, as you can see here, El Salvador, Honduras, Morocco, and Nicaragua. And in terms of negative decisions, a total of 7,000 applicants were rejected on the merit. This negative decision mainly concerned nationals from Colombia, El Salvador, Palestine, Peru, and Honduras. And there is a number of humanitarian protections which exist by the number of refugee status and subsidiarity protection. This is another category under the immigration law, but it doesn't mean that it's related with the international protection system. And this data shows that the average time for the logging and examining application for international protection, as well as the backlog of cases, have both increased. And now let's go to the second challenge that I want to share that's related to the reception conditions. Material reception conditions under national legislation on asylum are the same for every asylum seeker and even refugees. The national reception system, which is under the Ministry of Inclusion, Migration and Social Security, has been increasing its capacity these years, and now they are able to support about 29,000 people. Theoretically, this is organized in 3 phases, which is these 2 phases for these 18-month periods, and this can reach maximum until 24 months for vulnerable people. If these people get a negative decision during the process, they have to leave the system within 15 days. Within the phase that is called assessment and referral phase, people are provided with the information and some basic needs that are covered until they go to the first phase, which is the reception phase. In this phase, they have accommodation within a refugee reception center or an NGO-run reception facilities located over the Spanish territory. And it also includes the coverage of personal expenses for basic needs. And after we have the second phase, which is called the preparation for autonomy. In this phase, people move up the reception centers and receive financial support to start an independent life and gradually to get autonomy. Over some transversal activities that we develop during this process, we have social and cultural orientation, psychological support, legal assistance, language courses, vocational training, and employability programs. This system works very well with families moderately structured or for people with resilient capacities or educational skills that can be deployed in this new context. But now, and to finish, I would like to share some concerns that we have at the moment. The first concern is for the particular needs of people that, for example, women and or LGBT people on whom the trauma of persecution perceived. This trauma caused the limit to participate in the whole program. And also we keep the concern for people, adults and kids with mental health problems caused or with the violence experience of their countries, or people with chronic health problems who need special care for a longer period of time. That's why one of the main challenges is to manage the system from the real needs and profiles of the people in order to decrease their vulnerabilities and improve their capacities. And finally, also we face the big challenge related to labor issues. In general, asylum seekers face many obstacles to accessing the Spanish labor market in practice. Asylum seekers are legally entitled to start working 6 months after their application for asylum is officially accepted, while their application is examined. However, many of them do not speak Spanish at the same time they receive the job permit. In addition to that, the recognition of their skills or of their qualification is a long and complicated and often expensive procedure. Last but not least, they face discrimination due to their nationality or their religion. At the end, that's one of the concerns that I wanted to share. There are many other situations involved to the issues of the refugees, but I would like to finish here and continue the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Merlis, for really this is a very interesting case study about how asylum seekers perceived and who were rejected and for which reason, etc. And we definitely will come back with some questions later on. Now I would like to give the floor to Roland Fosso, activist and writer. So he also will have another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, Roland.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks very much, first of all, for inviting me for this this program. It has been a pleasure to see the other opponents who are there with me. We are all like, how can I say, we are all from different continents, and I can say most of us are really immigrants. It's something that a pleasure. We're talking of forceful immigration. When we talk of forceful immigration, when people find themselves here in Europe and asking for asylum, first of all, we have to look for where those people come from and what makes some of those people leave their homelands to come to find themselves where they are. No, one of those things we have to look about around at the conflicts that those people face where they come from. Like there are also problems of wars, mental health problems, like people from Africa, as I can really say, because that's where I come from. And I've met people when I was coming to Europe. Also, I met people on my way in the desert in the different countries who were struggling to make themselves to make their ways up to Europe because of the problems they had in their homeland. And we also have sexual orientation problems also, and we have political problems. The political problem is one of the major problems that drives Africans, especially people from Cameroon, where I come from, and also neighboring countries of that country, to leave their country to different to European countries, or in Spain, or in Italy, or in Germany, asking for asylum, because the political structures of our countries is not really all that good, because there's that problem of freedom of speech also. So some of those are some of the things that make some of these people to come out of their country. And when you look at the lifestyle, most of us immigrants, before we reach asking for asylum, the lifestyle we live where we find ourselves in different countries is not all that acceptable, because when we find ourselves in different countries, when we talk of racism, at times the racism part doesn't only comes from the Europeans. At times, when you find yourself in a different African countries, like what is going on now in Libya. Libya is an African country, and what I think, I've been in Libya. I was in Libya when in the days of Gaddafi, and what I'm seeing now in Libya is really exhausting, no? Because you can imagine that in the 21st century, in the days of today, we still have people in such a part of the world that do practice things like slavery. And some of those things, they traumatize some of those immigrants when they reach their final destination. So From there's also the problem of passport. You know, when you find yourself in such countries that you need to ask for asylum or you need to ask for help, your passport also depends. No, and what I noticed when I was in Morocco, people who comes from different countries, like the Asian people come from Asian countries. I know they also come from countries with conflict, a lot of problems, like Syrians and people from Afghanistan. They have more advantage than us Black Africans in places like Morocco. Why do I say so? Because when I was going through documents in 2015, 2016, I realized when they opened the immigration department there for asylum seekers in Morocco, that's when I realized they do discrimination within the Blacks, Africans, and other nationals, you know, as I can say, because some of they usually make us to understand that in our countries we don't have a serious conflict problem. You might say we don't have a serious conflict problems with like the Syrians, like the Afghan people from Afghanistan and other countries, but you don't feel the pain. He who comes from that area, who comes from that certain part of the world in Africa, and what is going on in that part of the world, like the political problems. But I just give an example, really, because I come from Cameroon, so I have to give. I like to give an example from that country because we have been having a problem with administrative structures in Cameroon, in the sense that the English and the French part, they are not in accordance with each other. So what is happening now? There's burning of houses in the English part of Cameroon. There are killing of people, the gunshot, and the government, the militaries are fighting against the rebels. But really, if you look at it clearly, it was not really that problem. It's just because the government lacked the capacity or the ability of solving such problems. So those people whose houses have been burned, where do you expect them to go? Since the country is in such a conflict, those people whose family have been killed, how do you expect them to live in that area? So those people have to, they are forced to go out. If you look in Nigeria, we have a lot of immigrants, refugees from Cameroon in Nigeria in the days of today, who are also asking for a better life because they can live in those villages that were living there. There are more than 80 villages burned in the northwest part of Cameroon, in the English-speaking part of Cameroon. So when those villages are being burned, they drive those people out of those areas. Where do you expect them to go? I'm not saying only Cameroon. You have countries like Nigeria also, that with the Boko Haram in Nigeria. You also have rebel groups in Mali, in Senegal, in Gambia, in all those countries that create those instabilities in those areas. So when those people come out from those areas and come and find themselves in Europe, and they lay their story down or their complaints down for why they leave their country, it seems as if the intensity of the problems they have in their homeland is not the same as the intensity of the problem we have in places like I'm giving a good example like Syria, because we know in Syria there's war really, and the situation is different. But at times we have to give that opportunity also to others to be able to look on their problem. So that's where we bring. I found that problems with the passport difference in seeking asylum. Then one of the things also, when you leave a country, like those of us who come from Africa to Europe, when you find yourself in a country like Morocco, they tell you there's an office for asylum seekers in between Morocco and Spain, which there's one in Ceuta and there's one in Melilla that were opened in 2014. So these offices, before you reach the office to seek an asylum, is a great problem because you have to pass through the Moroccan police, and to cross the Moroccan police barrier is not all that easy. So those are some of the things that are complicating the life of people to be able to reach their objective and have that protection they need. Because really, those who are asking for asylum are those who are looking for a good protection from where they were living or for where they come from. So if you can provide that opportunity for those people to have that liability to get to where they really want to get to, then it will be a big conflict The big conflict now comes in which sense? In the sense that most people can't go to the offices to ask for that asylum in Morocco because of the barrier, the police barrier. So what do? They join the others in the bushes and try to jump the fence. That's why it goes now to have a lot of immigrants in bushes like in Monteguruguru, in the northern part of Nador in Morocco. So it's just like we prepared a plan, and in that plan we move part of the plan in order not to give that possibility to everybody. Then it is not really, I don't really see it that way positive. No, one of the problems also when we reach Europe, when some of us cross the obstacles, as I can say, because we have the barbed wire and we have the Mediterranean Sea. When we cross some of these obstacles, at times that lack of assistance, because as Melis formally said, there were 25,000 people asking for asylum. When you talk of 25,000 people, it's a lot of people. How many assistance, social assistance workers are going to attend to all these people? So it gives that deficiency of the quality of work that they are doing, because we can go back to in the old days of immigration, when some of the Spanish people also went to Mexico, as the history told us. Some of the Spanish people went to Mexico to ask for a better life when they had the civil war in Spain. So those people asked for asylum, and they gave them that asylum immediately when they landed. So why can't you give that opportunity to others? Then we realize there are some people, like we Africans, we really have that problem to come to Europe to ask for asylum, because the easiest way to come is to take a flight. But it's difficult for an African to take a flight to come to Europe and ask for asylum. Yes, but it's easy from other continents. I've seen people from South America, I've seen people from Asia who came here through flight, and they asked for asylum, and with the shortest time of being here, but some of them got their stay. So those are some of the things that.
Yeah, can you wrap up, please?
Yes, those are some of the things that, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to ask also from the European government if they can create that facilities, that possibilities for us African also to be able to be like part of the other countries, or because we can it's not acceptable. It's not really acceptable on the other part that we can treat other nationals because of their passport also good, and other nationals because of their passport. But there are people, I know people here in Barcelona who have been here, who have been with the asylum helpers for almost 18 months, 2 years and 3 years, and later they were denied the asylum process. So what do you expect such people to do? There were 17,000 last year. How do you expect those 17,000 people to live? Some of those things are also those of the things that increases the crime rate in the city, because many people don't have opportunity. They don't have their way out. So if they don't have their way out, what do you expect them to do? They go closer to the wall, and they choke with the wall. So I'm just trying to plead also with this opportunity, if the European Committee can reshuffle a bit of their commission, and to see what they can do with others, like especially Africans. I'm talking really especially for Africans. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Roland, for your amazing presentation. If I would just have some comments on this paper, I would say, yeah, we have really a very nice panel with an overall numbers presented by Masoud, and then 2 case studies, one about the perception in Spain, and Ronald, who took us to the place of origin of asylum seekers, to show that there is almost force majeure often drive people out of their place of origin. Now, just to provincialize a little bit Europe, Masoud, one of the first slides showing that the top of receiving countries are in Europe, namely Turkey, and then come Germany, Sweden, and so on. But I would say if you took these figures by as a percentage of the population, Europe definitely is not the major host continent. Of course, I forgot to mention Pakistan. Pakistan was among these top hosting. But I'm thinking about Lebanon, where you have only 5 million population, and they receive almost 1 million of Syrian refugees. In addition of 2,000 Palestinian refugees since 1948. I'm thinking about Jordan, but also I'm thinking about Iran, also who received so much Afghani refugees until today, and so on. Now, so this is my first comment. The second comment, that it's very interesting what Merles showed us, that in fact still the nation state, that the reasoning of who would be admitted and who would not be is a still nation state driven argument. For instance, just to give you an example where I see the nation state doesn't have much meaning. For instance, one of the rejected nationalities are the Palestinians. But Palestinians living in Palestinian territories are often with the continuous Israeli colonial practices in West Bank, and in making Gaza Strip unlivable, what I called spacocide. It's not genocide, it's not killing Gazayan people, but I mean making the space unlivable. You cannot live there, etc. So this is major reasons why Gaza people, West Bank people will seek asylum seeker elsewhere. So I think unfortunately many of the way asylum seekers are sorted out is often by nationality, where your nationality will tell you whether you will be there or not. And finally, to Roland, I think the major reason of leaving Africa is a drought and the climate change. I mean, this is really the major factors inducing out-migration nowadays, more than the ethnic conflicts, more than authoritarianism, like in the case of Syria and things like that, and even and this is not new. I would say it's not new. I mean, Darfur is by excellence is drought-driven migration. Okay, so let me stop here and to see with the chat. I don't know. I think I would. I see Roland would like to comment, but maybe let's open the floor for questions, and then we will gather the questions, and Masoud, Merles, and Ronald, you will have time to comment. Okay, we still have around half an hour or a little bit less. Yeah, okay, it's around half an hour. So who would like to get the floor to talk? Yeah, Luisa, please go ahead.
Hello, thanks for the very interesting papers. I have questions for Merlis Mosquera. I was very interested in her description and analysis, and I wanted to do a bit of comparison with the Italian situation. Italy too has the subsidiary protection, which gives 5 years and allows you to ask for a permit, a European permit, but we no longer have this humanitarian protection. Because of COVID, the humanitarian protection, which used to give 2 years protection, has now been substituted by something that is simply a residence permit for special protection. This is the way it is called. I don't know whether you have a similar thing. You did say that humanitarian protection in Spain is not connected with international protection system. And I think the same is true for this new thing called special protection because of COVID. Except there is one clause that if you have asked for asylum before the fall of 2018, then you are still entitled. So this is one whole question. These two types of protections, subsidiary and humanitarians, and the relationship between the two, and the relationship between the nation state and Europe seem to me of great interest. This, and also it's interesting to notice that the regulations in different countries differ. So there is not a unitary situation in Europe. The other question is more on the, not so much on the regulations, but on the way the Commission functions, the Commission for asylum seekers. To my knowledge, because I've interviewed people who underwent this experience, the hearings of the Commission are very often painful and difficult because the interpreters are not up sometimes to the task, but also the person who is being heard and the Commission speak different languages in terms of what is called a village, what is called a subsidy, and what is called an area. So the Commission has often been accused of misunderstanding what the asylum seeker is asking and not doing a real effort to understand what she or he are referring to, what is the actual situation. And it's really a form of ignorance of the Commission. So I'm very interested in all this because it is, by the way, this is a minor aspect, of course, but the acting of the Commission interferes very much with our work as researchers. If you have interviews or dealings with people who have undergone this experience, it is very touchy what we do, what they tell us, and actually we do very well to keep secret what they told us in order to avoid any comparison with what they told the Commission.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I will give the floor to Rosanna and Javier and then Teresa. And if anyone else, I didn't see the name, please write it in the chat. So Rosanna. Rosanna is not here. So Javier.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, the three of you, for these very, very interesting presentations. Obviously, as a historian, I feel comfortable and uncomfortable sometimes with the sociological approaches, obviously, but this is one of the issues of this project, to put together all these different types of approaches against a same topic and a same problematic. And I am very happy that this roundtable was made out of three different perspectives, not only the theoretical and academic one, but also by the expertise of Merlin and Roland, also as an activist. So I'm very, very happy. And my question is for Roland, because in your presentation you mentioned a very interesting thing also for the So Close project itself, which is about the whys of the refugee or asylum seeker reasons for abandoning and asking for refuge in Europe. And you mentioned obviously some questions and some categories that I was wondering whether they could be projected versus the past or not, in order to understand better other types of refugees in the past during the 20th century. And you were talking about health problems, economic, political, war and conflicts reasons, but you also mentioned an issue that it's quite oftenly away from historical analysis, which is the gender and sexual orientation, okay? And that is totally very, very interesting for me as a historian, because it is usually a category not very often used in terms of the analysis of mass political violence, state violence against groups or individuals, and so on. My question is, in your perception, which is the percentage of that reason, of the reason of the gender orientation or sexual orientation, in terms of deciding, okay, in terms of taking the decision of getting out and coming and going elsewhere? Thank you.
Rosanna, please. Rosanna, you have the floor, Rosanna.
Yes. Can you hear me? I have an issue with the camera, but if you can hear me, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I have. Thank you. I have a very brief question. Okay, it's just about. Well, I'd like to hear a comment or some observations from the opponents about the politics or the lack of them to promote employability for forced migrants, asylum seekers, refugees with the refugee status. And well, actually the European politics that are being realizing actually to reduce discrimination and racism, to promote employability. I see the asylum system is collapsed. We saw on the presentation that the second phase would be designated for this kind of activities, but for forced migrants in general, or for that ones that are not included in the asylum system, are there politics in the receiving countries to promote it? But not only employability in general, but qualified employability, one that can withdraw forced migrants from a subaltern position in the receiving society. What could we say about it? That's it. Thank you very much for the conference and the roundtable.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosanna. Teresa? Teresa? Yeah. Hello, Teresa.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have a couple of observations and reflections. I think it's been a wonderful roundtable, very interesting, and I think that it's been a really excellent contribution for the overall project development. One question is regarding the categories. Here we are using the categories of refugee, forced migration, asylum seekers, and I think that from sociology, from the sociological field, we do have shed light on the blurring of these categories in the real life perspective. That's of course they are necessary for analytical reasons, but in real life these categories are blurred in the intersection of the people's lives. So I'm sure that Roland has already addressed this question, but Merlis and Masoud also can provide some reflections of in which ways we can introduce this complexity into the project. And the second reflection would be, and is something related to social impact, that I know that Dasari is also something that is in his heart. As a European funded project, we are requested and we are expected to achieve some social impact, so to address and to contribute to the social cohesion and to the better integration of the refugees and asylum seeker communities in overall Europe. So my question would be, in which ways the speakers see the potential of this project in the power of storytelling and gathering these narratives of the people's stories behind these journeys, these migration journeys that are oftentimes surrounded of trauma and very difficult and challenging situations. So which do you see that is the potential of this storytelling and narrative and sharing and connecting the contemporary experiences with the ones from the past? So I would leave it here. So thank you.
Okay, so I give the floor to Masoud.
Okay, thank you very much.
So let's say now it's almost 35. Okay. So we have 10 minutes. So each of you 3 minutes will be great.
Okay. Well, thank you for your questions, but I forget that to point out that Professor Hanafi is one of the worldwide leading sociologists in the field of the forced migration. He has surely more to say on this subject. But to resume, just I think that the last question I have some observation about the project, and the other questions they are directed to my colleagues. I think SOCLAUSE is important because it represents the cutting edge of interdisciplinary research and knowledge exchange. No, I want to highlight one of the most important aspects of SOCLAUSE, which is seeing refugee not as aid beneficiaries but as participating and resourceful actors. For example, as creative agents, as active agents. This perspective tries to focus on the role of forced migrants to changing perception of the conflict. It stresses on humanitarian that humanitarian actors and host states require a change in mentality, a shift away from viewing refugees as a captive and passive audience, towards seeing them as people with a range of ideas, skills, and positive coping mechanisms. Often, when we speak about refugees, they are portrayed as being in need of aid and humanitarian categories. We speak about their vulnerability. They are at risk. They have specific needs that we have to identify. This approach may appear logical or even indispensable, as refugees are likely to face diverse hazards during conflicts, flights, or in the host countries. But the position of the meaning of vulnerability can essentialize refugees as helpless victims and passive and aid recipients, and paying little regard to their agency and sense of subjectivity. So I think the importance of this project its interdisciplinary character, I think maybe perhaps creates at its level. I think a new approach, is seeing refugees as actors, emphasize the role of communities and emphasizing an participatory approach. So I think it's enough for me. So thank you again for your question.
Thank you, Masoud. Marilis?
Hi again. I would like to share some reflections. No, not necessarily answering the question, just sharing. The first is a reflection that always comes to my mind when I think in the forced migration issues. As you probably know, the standards of the international protection for refugees come from the Geneva Convention, which is an instrument while were used, who was created more than 70 years ago. And in terms of the refugee protection, the standards are very, very stricted now. For example, poverty, hunger, generalized violence like in Latin America, in Central America or Colombia, climate change, people who flee because of climate change are not included in these standards. That's the first issue that I see. And in Europe, we have a general standards that the ones that I know, because there are many regulations, are in the Dublin Convention, which basically limit the possibilities to apply for the asylum based on a direct persecution. If you are not able to provide that you are direct persecuted, your possibilities to get the protection will be very, very low. That's what happened, for example, in Spain, that there is the migrant law, which is a general law from that was created a very long time ago, and we have now the refugee law that try to protect in based on the Geneva Convention. That's why people like Venezuelans or Latin American people, or even people from Ukraine, from Georgia, for example, get this humanitarian protection, which is a resource a resource of this migrant law, who try to protect people with special needs, for example, health problems. That's a technical different, and also it is used as a policy to give some protection to these people. And in terms of, for example, employability, there are strategies. I won't say policies, I would say strategies in terms of that I know in my experience, that open certain opportunities for people to develop skills when they arrive to Spain. But the employability they're not only based on your skills, because the analysis have to be based on the market opportunities, and also in my work and the contact with refugee people, there is an issue related to expectations. Most of the people refuse some opportunities, and this is the task that we do, because the issues related with the skills. So the combination of these variables, it takes time to manage. I'm talking now based on my experience, and I wanted to say that there are some strategies, but sometimes these strategies to promote the employability of people are not enough. And of course, as I say, the issue of of discrimination and also the prioritization of locals for certain jobs. That's the reality, and we have to manage and to deal with this. Now, this is a general reflection. And finally, I will say in terms of this project that when yesterday I hear the conversation about memories, about the importance of bringing memories and also connect histories of refugees, I remember my experience in Colombia, no, in terms of the peace process, and the importance for the victims to recover the truth and recover their memories as human right recognition. And I think this project have a huge opportunities and possibilities to create the atmosphere for people to share these memories, and also that this opportunity will be and also connected to their recovery process, because as I say, one of the concerns is the mental health issues related to refugees situations.
Thank you, Marilis. Yeah, Roland.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you once more for the opportunity. One of the questions I got from one of the attendants was the reason for abandoning our nations, and he said something about the sexual orientation. Really, there's no limit for who has to ask for asylum, who is going to ask for asylum. Depends on the problem you have back home. Because most of the African countries, if you look at it, there are certain things that they don't accept it. They don't accept it in their homeland. That's why we come to the oriental sexual the sexual orientation part. But most of those people who find themselves in such a group, it's difficult for them to live in certain African countries. So that's why they have to move to where their situation is accepted. And if most of those people, when they travel, if they are not orientated well, they might fall in a different trap in the sense that the countries where they find themselves on their way, because what I'm saying when I talk of on their way, most of us Africans, we come to Europe through the desert and through other African countries. And not all the African countries accept what is being accepted here in Europe. So some of those people, they still find themselves in deep problems when they are in such countries. It's different like other continents that people can ask for asylum and you can take a plane to come to Europe and you continue your process. It's very different. We don't have that opportunities in Africa. So we go back to places like a country like Morocco where they have an office for asylum seekers. But it's difficult for you to find yourself in that office and seek for asylum. How can you put an office where one can't go there? So some of those difficulties are those of the things that we would like immigrants for the government or the European Union to try to loosen a bit those chains for us to be able to have that opportunity to adapt ourselves in different communities, as we can say, in communities that can be able to accept one another's problem. And the wars and all that in Africa, we go back to the lack of assistance. When you are out of Europe, when you are not in Europe, there's that lack of assistance. Most of the asylum seekers, they have the assistance when they find themselves in Europe. But when you're out of Europe, it's difficult to have that assistance. So those are some of the things that I would like the committee, the European Committee, to stretching up a bit on that. And then when we talk of it is a long waiting assignment, as I can say, because if you have waited for 18 months and you don't have a good result, then you still have to be there for 2 years. There are people who have been there for even 3 years, and later they were denied. My problem is, what I'm asking now is, all those people who have been denied, where are they going to now? What are we going to do with all those public that have been denied? Why all those public accumulated in one place because we don't share this job out. We don't share this or the opportunities out. People can ask asylum in different countries without the obligation coming to Europe. But since we don't give that opportunity to other countries who can help them, like what we have in Morocco, if we don't give that opportunities, then we have to have the accumulation of immigrants and asylum seekers in Europe. Then the European government shouldn't complain because the complaint comes from the lack of ability of doing such of carrying up such projects. So what I'm asking is if the European government can, or the European Union can relax a bit the process of asylum and give opportunities for other countries to be able to accommodate asylum seekers, then that will be a great solution in all what we are doing, because they end up most of the asylum seekers, they end up being alone, and those are some of the things that create social disabilities in many countries. Because imagine, I'm from Africa. When I was coming from Africa, I buried 15 people in the desert. Those people died in my hands. Imagine I reach Europe with all the traumatic difference in my brain, then they still refuse me that asylum. What do you expect me to do? Then you find me on the street doing funny things. That's one of the problems. So for us for the European government to avoid such and it increased vandalism also in the street, for them to reduce all those type of activities or acts in the country, is look for a good way of treating these processes, because I think the processes are not treated in the nice way, the way they ought to be. It seems as if they are treated the way somebody wants it to be. No, we have to treat it the way it has to suit those who are asking for, to avoid such problems.
Thank you, Roland, for a really very interesting reply or answer. Thank you all, Masoud, Marilis, and Roland, for amazing interventions. Thank you all for your intention and following us. So I give the floor now to organizer of this conference, in case they wanted to see something, to say something. Yeah.
Thank you, Sari, for your magnificent work. We have really stick to the time that we had, and it's important because now we have at 11:45 the other the last session of the conference devoted to the relationship between cultural heritage and digital media. So all the technological part of the project. So nothing more from the organization standpoint. We hope that the panel was really good. I found it really interesting, and I think that it really it really provide a good perspective for the development of the project, especially considering its early stage. So nothing more. At 11:45 we have the last session. So have a rest, take a coffee, go for a walk, enjoy a little bit of time, and at 11:45 we'll be back here. So thank you very much to all, and see you in a bit.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.